What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
The comments and views expressed on The Moore Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The Moore Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching the UK's only alternative late night talk show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined with Linda Moulton Howe, who is an Emmy award-winning TV producer, investigative reporter for radio and internet, and author, who goes directly to the men and women at the forefront of science and environmental breakthroughs and to first-hand eyewitnesses of high strangeness. Now, Linda has received 24 TV production and journalism awards for excellence. Linda Moulton Howe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so pleased to have you on. I know how busy that you are, and I really appreciate you giving us the time today to do this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Linda, I always say to people sometimes that come on, where do we start? But with yourself, there's so much to your work. I really want to just get a bit of background on yourself first as well. Now, you started out in journalism. That's right, isn't it?
I did my graduate work at Stanford University in Palo Alto, California, and got a master's degree in communication, in which we made documentary films. And it was the kind of perfect education where I was the only girl in a class of 27 guys in 66 to 68. And we all had to depend on each other to do camera, audio, cut negative, all of this that we were working on at the time. And so I was well prepared for the rough and tumble, all that I left Stanford and went into in news in Los Angeles. I was a street reporter at KNBC. Then I was hired to produce in the documentary division, and then I was asked to produce a live broadcast in the KNBC world. And I was married then to one of my classmates from Stanford who ended up going to Harvard. So I made a move where I ended up doing medical programming for 2 years at WCVB, the ABC station in Boston, and was a producer honored in a Peabody Award there, which has always meant a great deal to me. And then my husband, then graduating from Harvard, went to work for Time Inc. Corporation in New York and was assigned to Denver, Colorado. And that's where and how I became director of special projects at the CBS station there from 79 to 83.
Right.
And in that world, my assignment was to do like a couple of documentaries each year, live studio programs with audiences on issues and news reports for news segments. And it was in that context that in September of 79, I had just finished a documentary film with a crew. It was a very interesting discussion that is worth sharing because that's how I got into the whole issue of animal mutilations linked to some sort of an alien presence. On one day while we were producing a documentary that summer of 79, my cameraman and audio man and I were sitting having lunch, and the audio guy, Mark O'Kane, said, "Linda, I just got back on a very interesting shoot with ABC in New York. That was when 2020 was just starting." And he said, "We were trying to get to the bottom of why animals in the Midwest were being found dead with no blood, with this strange pattern of excisions and ear missing, eye, tongue, jaw, genitals, and rectum cord out. And our goal was to solve this mystery and report it on 2020. So he said, "You know what a stickler you are on keeping battery belts charged." Now, for the world today, that doesn't have much meaning. When you jump back to the 1970s, we lived and died on crews that kept battery belts that they wore around their waist,
Wow.
audio and camera, that would keep the camera powered and the Nagra, the audio that we used that kept in crystal sync between the camera and the audio. So that the cameraman and the audio in those days had to work like a ballet team around the fact that they had battery belts for power and they were corded together. And then I, as the producer, writer, director, editor, I would have to work with them. So we were like a 3-person ballet team. And that's what he meant, because I always was saying to both Mark and the cameraman, Rich Lerner, you've got to keep at least 7 or 8 battery packs charged at all times. So they were used to doing that because we would go out into the field and we would not have AC power. It's very different today.
So different.
So Mark is saying he's on this new network show, 2020. They're trying to get to the bottom of these strange bloodless animal mutilations. And he said we would leave the motel with all of our battery belts charged. We would drive out for a long ways to get to wherever was one of these animals lying on a ranch. And Linda, over and over, we would go to raise up the camera and the Nagra, and there would be no power from the battery belts. He said it was the scariest, spookiest thing. We would leave thinking there's something wrong, and as soon as we got a few miles from the site of the animal mutilation, our battery packs would come back on. We'd drive back, we would get close to the animal, no power.
Wow.
He said it happened over and over again. I said, well, what did you end up shooting? He said, we shot over 100,000 feet of film. Back then, for any crew to have a budget to shoot that much was impossible, because we all lived and died on these budgets where you had 400 feet of film usually for 12 minutes, and you might shoot at the most 100. And they had shot over 1,000 So I said, I'd like to talk with the executive producer, and I called him up in New York. I said, I'm director of special projects at the CBS station in Denver. Here's what my crew has just told me. Mark O'Kane was audio on your recent shoot about these unusual animal deaths. What has happened, and when are you going to air this broadcast that you shot so much footage on? And he said, the EP in New York, oh no, we scrubbed that. I said, you scrubbed it? Having shot all that film? It's so expensive. He said, yeah, we are in the business of news, and we are trying to do in 2020 programs that we can investigate and come to a conclusion. And we can never get any answers on these strange animal deaths, so we scrubbed it. That was the turning point in my professional life. Hearing that from an EP in New York, I wanted then to get to the bottom of why Mark's battery belts wouldn't stay running, what was happening to all these animals, how could they be an ear, eye, tongue, jaw, genitals, and rectum cord out, no blood, and no tracks around the body itself. I was really curious. And that is how I finished that documentary I was working on with Rich and Mark and said, my next project is going to be to get to the bottom of the animal mutilations. And I started my very first calls from Channel 7 in September of 1979.
Incredible.
And within 2 weeks of those calls, I was in my car driving 2.5 hours up to Sterling, Colorado in Logan County, where the sheriff there, I knew, had had over 200 of these animal mutilations between 1974 and 79. When I got to his office, he had just retired from a quarter century in the Logan County Sheriff's Office and met me at a little vacuum cleaner shop that he had opened up for his retirement years. And he had brought in a box of 266 color Polaroid photographs that he himself had taken of all of these various animal mutilations. And say, if there was one particular mutilation, he might have taken half a dozen photos on one, a couple on another. So the 266 was irregularly divided by how many he had taken, but there were a lot of animals. And I asked him if I could take all of these color Polaroids and order them chronologically on the floor of his store so that I could get a view of what was happening over time. That is just something about the way I've always approached everything I've ever done. You've got to concentrate on timelines and organizing things a long time. So after I had this long timeline of all of these photos, there was one that stuck out. It was a series of 5 or 6 of a black male, I believe it was a steer, and it was lying on powder, face powder, thin dust, and its head was down in a hole. But the rest of the body looked perfect. The legs were parallel. You couldn't see anything in the dirt. And so I asked Sheriff Graves, what happened here? And he said, well, Linda, that's one of those that gave me nightmares. He said, the deputy and I got to the scene. He said, we were getting 3 to 4 calls a day. We were getting to animals that were warm to touch, meaning they were only dead maybe an hour or 2 at broad noon, let alone afternoon and morning. And that the same MO, ear, eye, tongue, jaw, genitals, rectum, and still no blood and no tracks at these fresh scenes. So he said this was one of those. And as the deputy and I are walking up, I said to him, I said, I don't understand what I'm looking at here. Why is this animal head, why is it in a hole and the rest of the body seems untouched? So he said, let's walk about 12 feet around. He said, I'm going to take some photos. Let's look for any signs of struggle, prints, anything. And he said we couldn't see one
No.
sign of disturbance. So then they took shots that I have, and I have put
Okay.
several of these now in earthfiles.com news websites that I have done on mutilations, where you can see all of them. And then in the updated version of An Alien Harvest and Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 1, I have shown this case I'm talking to you.
Right.
So I asked the sheriff, what did you and the deputy conclude about this head in the hole? And he said the only thing that we could figure out is that whatever did this had the ability to hold this 1,700-pound animal on that dusty ground while it excised surgically the ear, the eye, the tongue, the jaw flesh, the genitals, and the rectum. But perhaps as an experiment, this was what the sheriff said, perhaps as an experiment, left the head unparalyzed, and in the agony of the removal of these parts of the body, it dug the hole because that was the only part of this large male animal's body that it could react to the pain that it was experiencing, and that the 8-inch hole, he measured it with a ruler, that the animal dug that 8-inch hole while all the rest of these excisions were being taken, while it was alive and conscious from its body.
That doesn't sound very loving, does it?
I was just going to finish off with, I looked at Sheriff Graves and I said, this underscores what I have been feeling today looking at all these color Polaroids, that there's something about this that's flaunting, like flaunting in our faces. We can do this. You can't, and you can't even understand how we did it. And then Sheriff Tex Graves looked at me squinting, and he said, Linda, I completely agree with what you just said. And he said, I'll save you some time. The perpetrators of these animal mutilations are creatures from outer space. I wasn't prepared for that sentence 2 weeks into September of 1979. My entire television production and documentary film world have been science, medicine, and the environment, hard forensic evidence, working in a medical center, at my master's thesis at the Stanford Linear Accelerator, where they were trying for the first time to get computers to analyze bombardment particle images. And when that sheriff, looking at me straight eye to eye, said the perpetrators are creatures from outer space, I still can remember it felt like I had touched a 220-volt circuit. I actually had a physical reaction to his words, not knowing that from that moment on, for the remainder of my professional life and my life, that I would be dedicated in curiosity to getting to not only the answers about who, what, and why in the animal mutilations, but it would expand to who, what, and why in the human abduction syndrome, into crop formations, government policies of denial and lies, and that today in 2016, it's now 79 to the September of 79 to September of 2016. It will begin my 38th, so I'm in my 37th year of, I've done all kinds of other television productions, 5,000 radio programs, all kinds of material on the web, producing earthfiles.com that now has almost 3,000 in-depth reports, 60,000 some images that are in science, medicine, the environment, and Real X-Files. My productions have been wide-ranging, but there is nothing that has been as compelling as trying to understand what I now know from government agents, that they have called this an alien presence on Earth, and they relate the alien presence to 3 competing geopolitical, territorial, conflicting non-human civilizations or species or groups that have been based on this planet for at least 270 million years.
Wow.
And one man working for the Defense Intelligence Agency who retired and sought me out in 1999, when he said that to me, I said, that's way before the time of the dinosaurs. And he paused and he looked straight at me, just like Sheriff Tex Graves looked straight at me, as if there's nothing but honesty that can come out of these eyes. And he said, Linda, we have proof that we're dealing with competing and conflicting extraterrestrials or non-humans in an alien presence on this planet. And we also know that one of these groups created the dinosaurs and that it was an 85 million year experiment. And he said, what we're not sure of, was it really an asteroid that crashed into the Gulf of Mexico and created the Chicxulub crater that took out all of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago? And he said, the question in our mind is, because we know that at least the ebens, the grays with the pear-shaped heads and the larger eyes, he said they can do almost anything. They could have evaporated that asteroid. They could have moved that asteroid into another timeline. So it seems to us there is a distinct possibility that the ebens, this one particular group of non-humans, allowed or provoked the large asteroid to hit the Earth that would take care in one fell swoop that they wanted to end their dinosaur experiment and start on something else. And we know that there were some mammals overlapping with the end of the dinosaurs. But after that extinction event, what just flourished were mammals. And we humans, Homo sapiens sapien, are part of the mammal group on Earth.
Right.
This is how large and sobering the entire huge subject of an alien presence that is based on Earth. But now we're getting whistleblowers coming from the Navy and from other points of view that are saying that there have been galactic trade routes with other non-humans based on Earth for millions of years. Homo sapiens sapien, the current model of humans that think that they are the top of the food chain on Earth and are not. We've only been around for 35,000 to 40,000 years in an overlap with Neanderthalensis, the previous standing up primate that is now gone extinct. And there are a lot of people in the human abduction syndrome for the last 50 years who have had dreams or telepathic information saying that life for Homo sapiens sapien on this planet is not guaranteed. And they raise the question, why did the same alien presence that compete with each other, why did they make all these other models take out Neanderthalensis and replace Neanderthalensis with Cro-Magnon Homo sapiens sapien? And today our numbers on Earth are in that 7.2 billion range and counting. And there are all kinds of signs and signals that the human population is too great and that a culling must occur. And all of that, not to sound frightening, it is to let's deal as a reality check on where are we in relationship to an alien presence on Earth. That recently, Lynn Buchanan, who was a very talented remote viewer with the Defense Intelligence Agency in the 1980s with Joe McMoneagle and Pat Price, and a group of very talented people that the CIA, NSA knew could remote view for real and that they could prove that they were accurate. In the fall of 2015, Lynn Buchanan worked with me on a radio project called Phenomenon Radio. And he said that he had been tasked many different times on, we'll call it ET, alien presence related issues. And he said, Linda, not just my remote viewing, but the other remote viewers who I respect for their accuracy and their talent, we all got that there are all kinds of what we call alien life forms that are not Homo sapiens sapien. They have bases throughout our solar system. They mine and have various harvesting operations in this solar system. They have other bases beyond Earth. They go out into the Milky Way galaxy. He said there are all kinds of trade routes, and that it hasn't mattered whether Homo sapiens sapien or Neanderthalensis or the Denisovans or Homo erectus had any awareness at all that planet Earth has been providing all kinds of materials, genetic materials, gold, metals, all kinds of stuff for galactic trade routes in the Milky Way galaxy. He said it's teeming with life, and that he and others have remote viewed that these galactic trade routes go way beyond the Milky Way galaxy to other galaxies. And you sit and listen to this, and you say, I feel like I'm waking up in a Star Trek television series. But you know something, Kevin? Today, as we are talking, I am really, truly beginning to see through other whistleblowers that I've been able to talk to in just this year of 2016, that the size and the scope of an alien presence on this planet for millions of years, linked to other civilizations through trade routes, it is really beginning to make sense. It is bringing all kinds of mysteries into focus. And when you have somebody like William Mills Tompkins, retired naval engineer, who just had his 93rd birthday on May 30th, his mind is sharp as a tack. As a teenager, he was a savant. He could look at photographs and then reproduce in absolutely correct scale models of what he was looking at, whether it was naval ships, UFOs, or airplanes. It didn't matter. And he gets, as a teenager, approached by the US Navy because of this extraordinary talent that he has demonstrated. And they bring him into a program that turns out, as he is now talking about for the very first time in his life, as he says, what have I got to lose? I'm 93 years old. And says that as this young man with this extraordinary talent of scale model making based on actual photographs, that he soon learned that the Navy was trying to understand who are the competing extraterrestrial alien intelligences that they knew were operating like a triangulation of agendas.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, and that there were reptilians, standing up reptiles that look like standing up alligators or lizards, tall ones with blue eyes and very white skin, and the ebens that are defined in government documents and by people that I've talked with who have had face to face with them. They are the gray skinned ones that have heads that are shaped like a pear. So think of this in a rounded chin versus the Whitley Strieber type that come like this down to a pointed chin. Most people deal for some reason with the pointed chin, but many people have dealt with the pear shape. It's the pear shaped head that people who have served in the CIA, NSA, DIA say that is the extraterrestrial biological entity that we think that we have been able to trust and ally with all these years. And they have some ability to control the interactions of the tall blondes and the standing up alligators with this planet. But recently, in 2016, for the very first time in my career, coming from several different points of view, is a question that is being raised by people with military either backgrounds or in active military right now. They're saying something along the lines, when you jump back to London and England and Gary McKinnon over a decade ago,
Yes.
who hacked into American intelligence computers and said that he was seeing a list of what appeared to be Starfleet pilots and other information that suggested that there was something like Battlestar Galactica going on from Earth, and that's what he found. And then the government of the United States came down on him like a ton of bricks, going to the UK government and demanding that Gary McKinnon be extradited to the United States for trial, and imprisonment was likely. And the very fact that the UK government did not order that, and that Gary McKinnon had an attorney, and that he went through a legal process, but he was never extradited to the United States and remains, as far as I know today in 2016, a free person in the United Kingdom.
That's right.
Raises a major question to me. How do the United States authorities and the United Kingdom authorities that we were so allied with in World War II, are they in agreement or disagreement about how to interact about the alien presence on Earth to the public? Is there a disagreement? I don't know the answer. What do you think?
Well, I don't know the answer, and I'd be guessing intuitively. Intuitively, my answer would be they don't really understand it. So are they working together? Yes, as best they can, but I mean, I don't think they truly understand the nature of the beast here.
Well, if you took William Mills Tompkins literally, a lot of people are picking and choosing and saying cherry picking what he has said. But let's say if you took his whole story, which is what I put on Coast to Coast, May 26th to 27th, 2.5 hours, did a 3-hour recorded phone interview with him, felt like I was just scratching the surface. Have talked with Bob Wood, who was the aerospace engineer at McDonnell Douglas, who edited this book with William Mills Tompkins. If you took the whole thing and said, what is his bottom line? That he worked from age 20 on for the Navy for a long time, was brought into the triangulation between what he said are Draco constellation reptilians that are marauding control freaks, and their whole goal is to enslave, this is his term, to enslave planets. Opposite the reptilians, according to him, are these other groups of the gray evens and some group that is blonde and blue-eyed. This is where it really gets confusing, because he and others, I learned about this in 1999 from a man who worked for the DIA and retired. He said, we are dealing with geopolitical, territorial, conflicting, which would be at war with each other, even if it's not with bullets and guns. They war through their minds, they war through time. He said that the geopolitical, territorial conflicts of these three are exacerbated by the fact that all three can generate, with rapid cycle cloning technology, exact bodies of their enemy. Enter it with a life force control, like an android, that would be completely under control of those that made, and the man in the DIA in 1999. So I'm jumping away from the current Tom DeLonge and William Mills Tompkins statements. I'm now going back to 1999 to a Defense Intelligence Agency agent who retired and sought me out. And he said, we have standing up alligators that can make tall, beautiful, blonde humanoids, can make ebens, control those body containers, and from a reptilian point of view, that the blondes can make reptilians and ebens, control them. The ebens can make blondes and reptilians and control them. He said it is absolutely like trying to operate a 16-layered chess game. Every layer has chess pieces, and Linda, you can't tell the players with your eyes and mind. You must have technology. He said the technology that we use is in the infrared frequencies, and we have helicopters, and we have various technologies that can be aimed at various human bodies to find out whether they're reptilian, blondes, or grays. That was so overwhelming to me in 1999, December, when I was told all of that. I had no context within which to hear that. I was thinking, this is madness. This would generate all kinds of new violence on Earth. Well, since then, with these new revelations coming from Tom DeLonge and William Mills Tompkins and a lot of people you haven't heard from because they're remaining behind the matrix, but they are talking to people like me. This is how difficult all this is. Okay, so why do I not feel afraid? Why do I feel that we're going to keep evolving in the 21st century? Hopefully, every human knowing what I just said and not being afraid.
Right.
Because this is why we have allies. We've always had allies. Historically, there was Prometheus in the Greeks that were ETs. That is not mythology. They are ETs that were based on this planet. All sorts of government sources have said that for a long time. The Anunnaki, that's not mythology. Those are extraterrestrial entities that were based on this planet, and they are control freaks. And they made androids to do their bidding, and those androids were the roly-poly evolving from Homo erectus up to Homo sapiens sapien. That's all of the books and work of Zecharia Sitchin from the 70s until his passing recently. Same story, but everybody for a long time kept looking at Sitchin's work as, well, interpretation of stone tablets in which academics argue all the time about how to translate. That's why everybody could push it off in the corner and say, maybe he's pointing in the right direction. Today, the work that has been done on the nature and character of the Anunnaki is describing egomaniacal family feuds in which those so-called brothers had no compunction whatsoever about killing all kinds of people in war. In other words, they would have family arguments, and then the Enlil character would end up killing massive amounts of people just to keep control. And you think about, if that's the history on this planet, if things like that are the ones responsible for mixing and matching and manipulating genes and already evolving primates to create the various standing up primates, we're the current model, then the question that I've always been confused by, why are humans so violent? Why don't humans cherish each other? Why do humans always go to conflict and war, tribalism? Why? Well, now it's becoming, I think, more and more clear that the Anunnaki and the Greeks, what did they do? They fought each other all of the time over territory, over egomaniacal power. It's unbelievable. So now let's come to further why I do not feel afraid, why I have some hope in spite of whatever may be here based on Earth, whatever's going on with the galactic trade routes as described in the Milky Way and beyond. Whatever the root, source of the genetic material for the creation of this current model, Cro-Magnon Homo sapiens sapien, 35,000 to 40,000 years in the long 2 million year evolution of standing up primates. We're just a model. There is something that seems to be extraordinary about the spirit, the life force that is in Homo sapiens sapien. It is talked about through literature. Humans see it all the time demonstrated, whether in families or in sports. And I can't help but wonder about something that going all the way back to the 1979, 1980 time period, when I was just doing baby steps, trying to understand what was happening with all the animals and realizing, yes, ranchers were describing beams. They see animals going up in beams, lowered, mutilated onto the ground in beams, a beam technology that we humans definitely did not have. And that there was an abductee during that period of time, long ago, more than 35 years ago, who said to me that in one of their interactions with one of the beings, which was an Eben type, they got the telepathic impression, image, that at least that particular group, the Ebens, wanted to understand where did the soul spirit, what they called the entity, come from that is in this latest model, Homo sapiens sapien. And at the moment of death, where do the Homo sapiens sapien souls go in terms of multiple dimensions? Because the Ebens and other non-humans cannot go to the dimension that Homo sapiens sapien goes at the moment of death.
Okay.
That was explained there, that some of them are studying the human soul.
That's very, very interesting. Let me just take on from there, actually. I think you would say in your work that you've come to the comfortable understanding, maybe, not scientific, shall I say, but maybe the potential that future, past, and present are all happening at once. It may be happening instantaneously. The future in 50,000 years, 40,000 years is happening now. Our past is happening now. So this understanding that, it's more like a pearl necklace in a sense, where
Just one quick footnote. Albert Einstein, E equals mc squared, general and special relativity. Einstein always argued that time was an alpha to omega stream in which everything was already locked in, as incomprehensible as that is, which would mean, from an Einsteinian point of view, that the physics in this particular universe excludes free will. That this is, to me, one of those philosophical paradoxes. Now, in South Africa, for the first time last year, there is a physicist who has taken on Einstein, has taken on general relativity, is saying that he thinks that there is the possibility, it's a hypothesis, it's not even yet a theory, that there are continual collapses at this. It's very hard to come up with language, that as we are moving through the timeline, that there are constant quantum collapses. It doesn't matter if you're talking about a microscopic bacteria or a human or an elephant or whatever it is. There are constant quantum collapses in which the motion, the reaction, whatever it is that's moving through time, there's a tiny bit of interaction within microseconds. And that, he thinks, can alter this Einsteinian timeline. They're competing with each other now, these theories. But that goes to the heart of what you said. If we are in an Einsteinian universe, and that there is past, present, and future are all woven as one, that every single, including this interview,
Yes.
it was that destiny is not a small word, that it is as if this universe itself, with the particular physics in this universe, implying that they could be an infinite number of universes with completely different physics, completely different timelines.
Yes.
We're in one where entropy is winding it down, but that alpha to omega, the infinity in this universe, even as it winds down, past, present, and future have always been there.
Right. Well, absolutely. Thank you for that. What I was going to say as well is that if that is the possibility, then okay, these beings, they've even the three competing beings and all the species that are possibly out there. And when I say possibly out there, let's just remind ourselves that we are one planet out of 1 trillion planets just in our galaxy, and 100 billion other galaxies. Now, some even say there's approximately 170 billion to 200 billion galaxies exist in the observable, I use the word observable universe. And if you think of a universe that's infinitive, which I cannot get my head around, I'm not too sure if you could, but I don't understand infinitiveness, that it could just go on forever, then we may be already in the everything. And when I say in the everything, that when our soul passes on, we are in that space now. So what I meant to say when I talk about everything as being as one, past, present, future, that if these beings have been around for a lot longer than we have, in a sense, their spirituality, their understanding of what the nature of the soul is, may be very much more advanced than what ours is. And they may not be on a quest of money. They may not be on a quest of egotism or war or manipulation, except for some of them, like we've said, the reptilians. I do believe you there that possibly they don't have good intentions at all. But the majority have very good intentions, in a sense. And if that is the case, and they are looking at the nature of their own reality, the nature of the soul, then this whole UFO complex, infinitive almost understanding, in a sense, is all down to consciousness. Really, what we're looking at here in this discussion today, as we wrap up, is consciousness, and that's what they're trying to figure out. Their consciousness. So even in abductions, maybe they're connecting when abductions to their past lives or their future lives. What if the people that they abduct is actually they abduct them for a reason, because they're something to do with a past life aspect of themselves. They understand that aspect. What if those coming from the future, are coming back to heal us, in a sense, because they know that spiritually it'll evolve them quicker? What if those coming from the future are coming because they're making the same mistakes as we are now spiritually, and they're reconnecting with their past life aspect of themselves to increase themselves spiritually? What if their thinking of this whole nature of UFOs is completely screwed up, and actually it's not what we think it is at all?
You know what Bell's theorem is, right?
No.
It's so critical to what you just said and to the big picture and everything. It goes back several decades ago in a laboratory where the whole goal was, if you have a beam of photons going like a stream, and then you have slits designed specifically to measure, is the photon hitting the slit spinning right or spinning left? This is the challenge of this experiment. And when they kept doing it over and over, and they would move the slits, they would exchange the slits, they would do all kinds of things to where this light was going. And what they found over and over and over again, at the speed of light at 186,000 miles a second, the photons kept reacting as if they always knew the spin of every other photon, meaning that it was as if photons already are reacting to each other from one end of the universe to the other, that the photon world is totally entangled, knows everything that every other photon is doing. And that when Bohm, who wrote the Implicate Order, brilliant book, says in one of the chapters, all mass is frozen light. and you hold that in your head, you hold the Bell's theorem that all photons from one end of this 13.9 billion year old universe to the other all know what every photon is doing, traveling at 186,000 miles a second. And then you go to probably the most profound experience of my life this time around. I was about 21 years old. I was in mountains in Idaho with my brother and a cousin. Our dad had dropped us in. He was director of aeronautics for the state of Idaho and went every place in a Cessna. So he could drop us into a place in the backcountry. We were on Johnson Creek, and leave us with supplies, and we would fish and hike and do this. And I was also trying to get my body toughened up for the Miss America pageant that I was going to be in. Had gone into the Miss Boise, Miss Idaho pageants to get scholarship money to go to college. And I was getting my body trained to be in the Miss America pageant in Atlantic City. So to do that, there was a path that I was climbing, a relatively steep hill at the base of mountain every day. And some days I was climbing it twice a day, and I was doing this the whole time we were there. So we had been probably at this campsite for maybe by this time 10 days. So I had been up and down this mountain 20, 30 times. So there was nothing new except when I got to the top of this hill with more of the mountain beyond. I saw these orange, sparkly beams coming down through the pine trees. And it was as if I had never seen light before. The color was not like any orange I'd ever seen. My left brain was thinking, could the sun setting be making such a beautiful color? And I wanted to just go to the tree and put my hands in these beautiful orange beams. That was what I remember. And as I started to move, everything slowed way down, like changing from 24 frames a second to 96 frames a second in a camera. And I can remember getting closer and closer to those beautiful sparkling orange beams. And then I don't have any clear linear memory from there, but I find myself now at the bottom of the hill on the path that ran at a foothill, and I could see down in the distance at the actual creek that my brother and my cousin were making stuff. I could see that they were there. So I'm totally beta conscious. But what happened next is outside of anything in my life experience to that point. And in many ways, since it has become the rock of my life. It was June, and there were wildflowers everywhere. And one of the wildflowers near my feet, where I had stopped on the path, started pulsing an orchid light, sparks coming off of it. And I didn't feel fear as much as, what is happening? And to make everything come back to normal, I started running down the path, maybe 20, 30 feet, and I stopped. Then as far as I could see in all directions, every flower was pulsing this orchid light that had white drops seeming to come off of the orchid. And I looked back up the hill mountain that I had just come down, and it was exactly like the Van Gogh paintings near the end of his life, where it has the energy that is going like this through the mountains. I'm seeing energy in this undulation in this hill mountain. And then there were a few stars because the sun had gone down behind this big rocky mountain. And there were a few stars pulsing exactly like the flowers. And then I felt it was like warm jello. It's the closest I can say. Warm jello lifted up my own arms and hands. I had nothing to do with this. It was something else. And it lifted my two hands in front of me like this. And a thought voice, as clear as can be, came into my mind. And these are the words that I heard. You are one with the light is one with you, and you are in the hands of God forever. And then it was just like a rheostat. 10 seconds, 9, 8, everything started very slowly returning to the way it looks normally, almost as if I had this residue feeling in my mind. Watch this, absorb this, understand this is the true nature of all matter, of everything around you, of every human that you meet, every animal, everything is like this gift that has just been shown to me by lifting up some proverbial surface and letting me see all the pulsing light underneath, and then slowly closing it down, leaving me standing there in awe. And Kevin, from my life forward, it is that experience that has been literally my rock, that I relate, that I have a soul spirit that completely understands what happened, and that it was a gift, as if the higher consciousness, the God force, the divine field knew what my life was going to be up against, even though that was the furthest thing from my mind as a 21-year-old, that by the time in 1979, when I would be, I was born in 42, so by 1979 was the very first moment that I crossed through Alice in Wonderland's mirror into what is behind the animal mutilations. And then I never, ever remember being afraid. I was in so many dangerous situations. I was out in these fields, not only in the United States, but in Canada and England and Australia, where I was investigating on my own. I was in many pastures with formalin solution and a scalpel and scissors to collect tissue to get it FedEx back to Dr. John Altshuler in Denver for forensic examination. Every once in a while, I would think, whatever is doing this, I'm the easiest target to take out. I wonder if that will happen. I am still here in 2016, and that I have had all kinds of encounters with danger in which light seems to have reappeared in my life to protect me. And in that protection is this ground that I stand on now. That no matter whether there are standing up alligators from Draco and other galaxies that want humans annihilated, there is not one whit of a question in my mind or soul that there is a divine field. It is responsible for all the matter worlds, for all of the photons. It wants our souls to survive and evolve back to that divine field.
Right. Okay, and that's a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing. That was a really beautiful thing, because I've not heard you say that before. So thank you for allowing that to come through and trusting us to bring it through here. I really appreciate that. I would say that answers so much about your journey, really. It's almost, for me, what's coming through is that, you had that experience, so that when the time is right, you'll be able to combine the spiritual with the factual evidence that you've got and see a much, much bigger picture. And really, as you feel, you're forever. Your soul cannot. It always was, and it always will be. It came from somewhere, and it'll go back to it. So the nature of the universe is not the physical. It seems to be the nature of the universe is a spiritual nature. Yeah. If that is the case, have we misunderstood what the UFO phenomena is about?
I think that we are in a universe in which the yin and yang symbol is profound in giving us an insight that there is always black in white, white in black, and that for some reason we are in a universe in which there is constant conflict. There is constant explosions of suns. Things are dying all the time. This is why this is a universe of entropy. But schizophrenically, contradictory, whatever, paradoxical, it is exactly this kind of a universe in which the yin and the yang give us the insight about the characteristic, the fundamental nature of this universe.
Right.
That souls coming into body containers and life in this universe may learn faster, accelerate faster in the journey back to the divine field than perhaps any other universe out there. And that there is something about beginning to wrap the mind around the fact that conflict and war, I hate them, but they seem to be throughout this universe, according to the remote viewers. Conflicts everywhere. But there are allies to evolving life who understand the picture you and I are talking about now, and that they are trying to champion and protect and help life flourish, because the souls are what is important, and the photon energy. If you stand in light every day of your life, if you can, for 15 minutes, simply meditating and contemplating that those photons that are coming on your face, on your neck, they are the same photons that are entangled with our entire 13.9 billion light year universe. That is the greatest comfort to me. And then I feel in those 15 minutes each day in the sun that I am connected to all of those photons, just like they all knew what to do and what they were doing in that lab. And that if we all could do that on a daily basis, connect with the universe and photons, not iPhones and glasses and these gadgets. We are losing something on this planet now. The whole millennial generation is disconnected from that link to the power of sunlight, moonlight, starlight, the kind of fundamental link that I and others, going back for centuries, that we have had in relationship to the world around us day and night. And that is being substituted by electrons in gadgets. I personally think that is a mistake. And I'm hoping that the millennial generation will begin realizing that that's not life. That doesn't give you the ability to have a gut feeling and to be in connection with this universe around us. And that the non-humans may themselves find that people who are locked into electrons 24/7 are more vulnerable to manipulation than those who walk more freely, sensing the world and the universe around them. And that, to me, is what I just said.
Yes.
Is what is going to be the curious theater of the rest of this 21st century. Are humans, Homo sapiens sapiens, going to realize that they weaken themselves if they disconnect from the trees, the animals, the water, the air, the stars, the sun, the moon, and all of that? If they disconnect and substitute the digital world entirely, we will be a weakened species.
Yes.
If the millennials realize this and they say, no, we're going to try to run in hills. We're going to start trying to listen in the silences. That's where some of the greatest learning in my life and throughout literature, when there is not a cacophony of voices and noise and music, and you begin to listen in the silence that goes to and from your very soul, that is where I think we have the greatest strength.
Absolutely, and when you go into that silent space, don't be surprised as well if you hear your voice being projected back at you, and it's your oversoul or higher self coming through wanting to talk to you sometimes, and that actually all knowledge that you're ever looking for does lie within. We just have to trust that that voice that comes through is all loving, all knowing, and it's this greater part of us that always was and always will be. As you know,
There is danger. This is not a safe universe in the sense that if we left Earth, everything would be rosy and wonderful. No,
no.
it's almost as above, so below, only we could say what we have experienced on Earth since the Greeks and the Anunnakis were killing each other all the time. We have seen it reflected in the evolution of Homo sapiens sapien. Well, then maybe we are prepared to start becoming a space-faring civilization, because we know that we have to be prepared for danger. We have to be prepared for conflict, but that we cannot lose our strong sense that there is not only other allies that are life forms, but that we have a divine field that wants our souls to strengthen and evolve back to the divine field. That is my rock.
Yes, absolutely. And I know we're 7 minutes over here, so we're just about to stop, because I know we've only got really 51 minutes with it, and I appreciate it. And we've barely scratched the surface of your work. You know that, and I know that I was going to talk about the mutilations and everything else about the future beings coming forward backward to to genetically harvest material because that's what they need. We would need more time, but just to end this then very briefly. The last question, really, well, almost last question is in a sense, the majority of mankind are not open to the fact that this reality that we're talking about exists, that there's trade routes and there's multiple species out there. For them not to have come forward to allow them to say that we are here, why have they not come forward? Do you think that's a caring side, a spiritual side, not to impose their truth, but for us to have free will to come up and make our own truth?
No, that's naive, I think. We are dealing with non-humans that have demonstrated very visibly and clearly in the past that they war with each other over family arguments. They war over territory. They have no hold back in killing thousands of people or them. But having said that's our historic route on Earth, Homo sapiens sapien, this current model, is more complex. Probably in the scheme of things, we are far more advanced than the Anunnaki and the Greeks in this sense that we have souls that seem to be so special. And that it is the soul in the long run, no matter which type of life you are, with which power, which ability to move dimensions, timelines, move point to point by being able to bend space-time. They all are doing this. But if the universe, all the way through from one end to the other, were like what we're learning about the history of the Anunnaki and the competing Greeks, it would just be a violent landscape, and the only thing that would prevail in this universe would be might, weapons, killing. I can't go there. I cannot believe that the divine field allows only killing, maiming, territorial, egomaniacal brutes. I just can't believe that. I think that one of the things around us in humanity, we see humans with compassion for each other every day, small ways and larger ways. And compassion has to come from the soul. And therefore, in over and over, even people in the human abduction syndrome have said this. There is something about the nature and the spirit and the life force in this current Homo sapiens sapien model that is not only of curiosity to the non-humans, but that in many ways we may have souls that are more advanced. On a planet in which, unfortunately, the only things that count right now in 2016, money, power, sex, surface. I don't know why that is the case. It's wrong. It's not where the importance should be. The importance should be on compassion and peace and recognizing the soul within every person and trying to develop. And maybe the 21st century is the transition ground.
Yes.
We're either going to go toward freedom and development of the soul and cherishing life on this planet and not immense waste and tremendous amounts of money going for sustaining the power brokers while the vast majority of people have very little. All of that would be a tragedy. And now we're back to Einsteinian physics and E equals mc squared. And the issue is the past, present, and future already locked in. Do some of us feel a kind of hope and excitement that this century is going to take us out into space and beyond the Milky Way, quite literally, and that doing that may take pressure off of the environmental pollution that we are doing to this planet, this gorgeous, gorgeous Earth that has been apparently cherished and honored and valued by other intelligences for millions of years. And we come along, and humans have been totally unconscious about their impact, even on their planet. And that if we, as a whole species, begin to understand what we are doing consciously, it could change the future as much as this universe allows that to occur, to an evolution in which our very souls will be the determiner on whether Earth is going to be a prison planet run by reptilian, fascist-minded slave makers.
Yeah.
Or we really are going to live up to what appears to me to have been a gift from something extraordinarily high that I call the divine field, that wanted to take these creatures that were made to be somebody else's slaves and robots. Never forget that. Humanity was made on Earth to be somebody else's slaves and robots.
What if the soul chooses that? What if a soul chooses to have that experience before it comes down? It chooses to have an experience of restriction. It chooses religion to be restricted. It chooses many things because where it comes from, the nature is all-knowing, but really to come down here to have an experience is something much different. So what we class as wrong or right, or say that's wrong or that's bad, really on a spiritual level, really it's not really like that. It's actually very different. I'm just saying.
I sort of understand what you're saying. And I guess the simple answer is neither you nor I, nor the general masses of Homo sapiens sapien fully understand enough about the soul relationship to the cosmos now, because we've been denied the information.
Well, I always say to people, if they want to find the answer, go in a quiet space, meditate if you can do, and listen to that voice and ask it a question. And you could be surprised what might come through. We say there's no answers, but actually we can connect to our soul. I do believe that.
I do too. And that doing the sun, I am one with the light. The light is one with me. I'm in the hands of God forever. If you did that every day, at least I know in England that sometimes it's no sun. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it's sun here almost every day of the year. So I have the ability to do this. I just know that it helps me so much that if your listeners would try it, they might find that it helps them too.
Well, I'm so grateful for you to share that story. That means so much, and so much trust for you to share as well. I really appreciate that. And I will end this on a
I just add
Sure,
that
sure.
I wrote the prologues of my 2-volume book, Glimpses of Other Realities. Each of those 2 big volumes has a prologue. The one at the beginning of Glimpses Volume 1 is about a tremendously spiritual experience I had in the Andes in Peru. The second, Volume 2, is the story that I told you about what happened to me with the light and something bringing my hands together and giving me those words in Idaho. And the reason that I put those 2 prologues at the beginning of these books about these difficult subjects related to other intelligences on Earth, I wanted every reader who held those books to know this is where I come from. This is the lens in which I am looking at even the animal mutilations that at one level are repulsive and could be something that would make you afraid. But that what I have tried to do is hold the door open, that even the animal mutilations might be helping some other civilization to stay alive, to buy time for the Band-Aids, as Jim Penniston said at RAF Bentwaters, because they are in a civilization 40,000 years in the future that is dying out, and they have some connection to us in the timeline of the 20th and the 21st centuries. And this may be their only chance to harvest genetic material from Earth when it was close enough or healthy enough to help them survive. If we all knew that, I think that humans have that ability to be compassionate, and we would say there must be a way that we can do some sort of a trade, a barter, willingly, so that humans would be helped on Earth consciously, knowing that they were helping something survive, and it wouldn't have to come in the dark. It wouldn't have to be an abduction from a bedroom. It wouldn't have to be the plucking of an animal from a pasture that the rancher had no control over. If we could get the entire planet of humans in trade routes, everybody would have not only their city to make art in, or music, or craft, or technology, but they could begin to develop trade routes with other intelligences.
Absolutely.
What an incredible step for Earth.
Yep, and for us to treat each other as family, to see that if we are a soul, if we do have that energy, we've come from somewhere, we go back to it, that really we're all connected then. And why would we want to hurt another? Why would we want to cause pain to another if we were all connected in that way? But I know we've run out of time right now. I would just like to say, Linda, as well, how can people support you as well?
Thank you very much. My news website, www.earthfiles.com, I have been producing since 1999, largely on blood, sweat, and tears. And it does have a subscription base. It helps me immensely to do my work, to have subscriptions at Earth Files. And then in the Earth Files shop are all of my 4 books. I'm beginning to work on a 5th, but 4 books, 3 DVDs, on a wide range of subjects, and they're always available through the Earth Files shop. And we are now just about to release the first digital ebook of a big, long series that I have done at Earth Files called Hall of Mirrors with a Quicksand Floor. I'm going to have that in a downloadable ebook, hopefully by July.
Excellent. Well, throughout the interview, we've been putting your book and website on the screen as well. That's been continuous for people to get access to you. This has been a very profound interview, much more profound than I thought it was going to go, to be honest with you. I knew it was going to be very, very interesting, but there's a depth to this that's much, much bigger than I thought, and we've only touched the surface. So I'd just like to say, just thank you so, so much for giving us the extra time and for your time today.
Thank you, and we'll do it again because, as you said, we're just scratching the surface. There is so much more. And for people who are listening, if they read the 4 books that I have done that are out in the world, I think you will be amazed at how many answers and true insights have been coming my way for a very long time. And now the books seem to have the world catching up to what people were telling me even in the 80s.
Well, Linda Moulton Howe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on The More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.co.uk, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.